Hi, boys and girls. This is Grandma Sheila with another story for you. Our story today was called He Rewarded Evil with Good. Well, it was a moonlit night in Mexico, and there were three young lay preachers. Now, they weren't real ministers yet, but they liked to go out and preach to the other villages and tell them all about Jesus. Well, they were walking down this moonlit path. Now, the path was very, very narrow, so only one at a time could walk, and the others had to follow behind. Well, there were three of them, and the one young man's name was Julian. The story doesn't tell us the name of the other two men. But they had gone to a village and they were very excited because 75 people had come out to learn about Jesus. And do you know, at the end of the meeting, when they had asked if anyone wanted to follow Jesus, 25, that's a third of those people came up front in that little auditorium and said, "We want to give our hearts to Jesus." Well, as they were walking down that narrow path in the moonlight, luckily they had moonlight because that was the only light that was out there. Further up that little path, standing kind of in the brush on the side of that path, were several men. And they didn't look like they were friendly at all. And in the side of hanging down from their belts were long machetes. Now, machetes are, I can't even make it long enough for you to see my hands, but they were long knives. And they were really sharp along the one edge. And they were really wide. And this was all a heavy metal. And then they had handles on them. And they were hanging from the men's belts by their leg. And the moonlight was sparkling on them. Well, they didn't like it that somebody was in their area. And they yelled out into that moonlit night, "Whose goes there? What are you doing out here in this lonely place all by yourselves?" And Julian answered. He was the last one in those line of three lay preachers. And he hollered back and he said, "We've just come from the village. We went to preach about Jesus. Do you know that Jesus is coming soon? And we went there because we want everybody to know that he's coming soon so they have time to get ready." Well, the men, they didn't say anything. Then in the darkness, the two lay ministers heard a curse. Oh, such a vile sounding word. But they decided, oh yes, they were praying, but they decided that they wouldn't stop. The first one in line, he walked by, and those men didn't say anything to him. The second one walked by, still praying with his eyes wide open. Then Julian came down that path, and one of those evil-looking men stepped out with his machete in both of his hands. And the two lay ministers that had already gone down that path heard a big sound, whack, and they turned around to look from where they had come. But Julian was still walking along, and they thought, he doesn't look like he's hurt. But they turned around and they rushed back to him. And they said, that guy with that machete, he must have hit the ground really, really hard with his machete, because we heard that big whack. And Julian said, hit the ground? Nothing. That was my back he hit. And they were really worried then, and they ran around behind and they pulled up his shirt to look, but they couldn't see anything. And they both went, it had to be a miracle. Julian didn't look like he was hurt at all. And then he said, well, he hit me with the flat of his machete, not the sharp part, but it kind of was like a child had just patted me on the back. And once again they said, it had to be a miracle. Well, they went on their way. Well, the next morning, that evil man that had hit Julian along that path woke up. Oh, 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 his stomach hurt. Oh, and his head hurt. And he was so hot with the fever. Oh, and he told his friends, you've got to get me to a doctor. Oh. And then they said, there's no doctor in this village. And the nearest village, there isn't any doctors there. And then one of them came up close to the sick man and he said, but I know of a man that they say can make people well. The man said, oh, who is he? And the other man said, his name is Julian. Oh, the sick man ran. Oh, no. Oh, that's the man that I hit with my machete last night. I'm sure I cut him good and he's dead. Oh, he's dead, and that's the only person that could have helped me. And then another one of the men came closer and he said, oh, no, he's not dead. I went to the market this morning and I saw him in the village. He's walking around just fine. He's not dead. But the man didn't say, go get him. So he lay there. And as the day went on, oh, he got sicker and sicker till he was rolling around, rolling around in pain. Oh, it's so awful. Oh, I'm going to die. Then one of the men said, shall we go find Julian? He said, oh, go find him. I'm going to die anyway. But he probably won't want to help me after what I did to him. Oh. So the men went off to the village. And they asked Julian if he would come. Well, he recognized those other evil men. He said, "I'll come. Give me just a minute." So he went back in to where he and some of his friends have been praying. And he said, "Remember that man that hit me with a machete last night? And God did a miracle? Well, he's sick, I guess, and he's asking for me." Well, boys and girls, if somebody had been that mean to you, would you say, "No, I won't go. He deserves to be sick"? But no, that's not what Julian did, because that's not what Jesus would have done. So Julian went to the house of that sick man. And oh my, was he ever sick? Oh, I'm gonna die. Oh, my stomach, I'm gonna die. Oh, and his fever was really high. Now, Julian went in and he had asked those young men back in the other village if they would pray for him, that he could do and say what God wanted him to do for this man, so that man might find Jesus. Well, he went in and he got down and he did all the treatments that he knew to do for somebody that was really sick and in pain. He gave him what remedies he knew and what little meds he had. And by the time he left at the end of the day, he was feeling a whole lot better. And he looked at Julian and he bent his head down and he said, "Could you forgive me?" And Julian looked at him and he said, "I don't need to forgive you." And then he said, "Because you didn't really hurt me last night with your machete." And the man said, "But I hit you really hard with the blade. You should have been dead." He said, "No, you hit me with the flat part of your machete, and I'm not hurt. God protected me." And boys and girls, because of his kindness, because he rewarded evil with good, that evil man, that evil man started going to the meetings and telling everybody about a God that made his followers kind and good and replaced evil with good, and that they needed to go hear him. And in the villages where the young three missionaries used to go to preach, where the people would throw rocks at them and call them bad names and wouldn't come to the meetings, all the people now would come because they knew that this God rewarded evil with good. Thank you, boys and girls, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye now. Have a good week.